Hi, I'm the Red Shirt Lady, and I just want to show you how to identify a persimmon tree and what they look like when they're ready. These have already had at least one frost, and a lot of them have already fallen to the ground, but you can go ahead and take them off. If you shake the tree, they'll come off pretty easily. They need to be so squishy that they almost just burst in your hand. So I'll show you what they look like. Kind of like that. I wanted to show you what the bark of the tree looks like so you can recognize a persimmon tree, maybe before the persimmons actually come on. We're going to shake this tree so that we can get the persimmons that are on the top down. We just wanted to show you what a fully mature persimmon tree looks like. It's going to be a little bit harder to harvest. You're going to have to get on a ladder to shake that one down. This is what the bark looks like on a fully mature persimmon tree. It's going to be a little different than anything else you'll see, so it's easier to identify. Now we're going to show how to extract the pulp from the persimmons. And I just take a few at a time, and I want to rinse them off first. The reason being is because when you take off the tops, sometimes they're going to mash up, and you don't want to have to rinse away any of your pulp when you're doing this. Like this one. You want to take away, of course, any leaves and stems that are going to be mixed in before you rinse. And if you're real careful and save the tops, they look like flowers actually, and I've seen people make wreaths out of them. The bottom of the persimmon actually has a little tail on it. It's okay if that gets in the pulp, nobody's going to notice it, but you don't want any of the tops in because they'll be sharp and crunchy. Okay, so I've got a good amount of pulp here, or a good amount of persimmons to make pulp. I am taking a jersey bag because I feel like this is an easier and better way to do it. You're going to get your hands messy than putting it through a colander. And if you don't have a bag, just get an old football jersey, cut a square out of it, drop the corners, and twist. Okay, so I want to gather them in the bottom. I want to make it as tight as I can, so twist, 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 as hard as you can. You can see it's already coming out as I twist. So I just keep doing that. Scrape off as I go. It's really messy, but it's worth it. As I was finishing up these persimmons, I was noticing that some of them are really mushy and it's hard to get the tops off. So I want to show you an easier way. Just hold on to the top and just squish the rest off. Kind of twist, squish it off. Do it that way. It's a little messier, but it's a lot quicker. Okay, I extracted the pulp just from that one bag of persimmons, and we got almost 1.5 cups. And we only need 1 cup for our recipe that's going to make 2 loaves of bread. So this is what the seeds will look like in the bag. That's about as much as you can get off, pulp as you can get off of a batch of them. So you know when you're done. We've got this much more to go, so we'll be able to make plenty of bread. Now we're going to make the bread. And if you have never had persimmon bread, it's similar to pumpkin, but it's richer. I think it's much better. So we're going to start with the wet ingredients. I've already cracked 2 eggs into my bowl, and we are going to add a cup of oil, 1.5 cups of sugar, and I just use a whisk on my wet ingredients to get it incorporated faster. First person who made this bread for me was Red Davis. He was an older man in our church, and he knew how to forage for anything in the forest. He knew how to fix it and prepare it, how to find it. So I'm really thankful to him for that. Now we're going to do the dry ingredients. And instead of getting a separate bowl for the dry ingredients, we're just going to put them all on top of the wet, and I'll show you how I mix that in. I've pre-measured everything. So we have a 1 1/4 cups of flour. And then I've put all the spices. We have a 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon allspice, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. And if you don't like any of those, you can substitute more of one for the other. Also a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of baking soda. And remember, when you do baking soda, it lumps occasionally, and that will show up in your bread if you do not press it out. So I always put it in my hand and make sure there's no lumps, and then add it. That makes everything incorporate better. So I'm just going to add this to the top of my flour and sort of mix it in before I add it to the wet. Well, I use less bowls. And I'm going to fold this in, and mixing it a little more vigorously is all right. When it's about halfway through, you want to add your persimmon. Just got 1 cup here. There are so many good things out there like persimmons that God's made for us to eat. We just have to find them, and when we do, it's a treasure. If you like nuts, you may add a 1/2 cup of nuts. I'm going to omit them this time because some of my kids won't eat them. Okay, now this recipe will make 2 loaves of bread, like this loaf pan, but if you want it to look nice for the holidays, I have done this before. I put it in a bundt pan, and this is the right amount for 2 loaves of batter. And then it will come out nice and pretty, and already be in your slices at the end. And really, this is sweet enough that you could serve it as a cake just as much as you could serve it as a bread. Drizzle a little icing on the top. We're baking this at 350 for about 45 minutes. And it's going to get pretty dark before it's done. Don't let that scare you. It's supposed to be a dark brown. And let's bake it. I pulled the bread out of the oven. I let it cool for about 10 minutes so it will be ready to come out of the pan, and we're ready to plate it now. So I want you to see what it looks like. It's going to be a dark brown, especially on the edges. It's going to be pulling away from the edges, and you kind of want to go around and do this to make sure that it's going to come out nice for you. Kind of loosen it up a little bit first, and especially if you're having a bundt pan, you want to go around the middle before you plate it. So I'm just going to put a plate over the top. And this pan is still hot, so I'm going to use my gloves. I'm going to do it this way. There we go. That nice. And like I said, if you want to serve for a cake, you can drizzle some icing over it, but it's really good as a bread for breakfast.